So I'm here to help you with your 12 marker in the AS level paper, which talks about how to curb demerit goods, 2 policies required for it, and we have to evaluate the effectiveness of both the policies. So we have to talk about AO1 component and AO2 component, which deals with knowledge and understanding and analysis. This is 8 marks of your exam paper. Plus you have to also talk about the AO3 component, which is the evaluation or conclusion. This is the 4 marks of your answer. Okay, so if we start with the AO1 component here, which is the knowledge and understanding, we have to talk about what are demerit goods, and here I have helped you do that with the help of a diagram. For demerit goods definition, the first important point is you have to talk about the negative externality in consumption. If we take the example of, let's say, cigarette or alcohol or any such good, when you consume the good, the society deems it to be more harmful for them than the private benefit that you get from consuming the good, right? Now the information failure problem is very, very important when we are talking about demerit goods. So when we talk about information failure, we are talking about how the individual under realizes the benefits of consumption of such a good and the harm that he is causing, which is more to the society than the individual themselves. So if we actually look at the 2 curves, which is a private marginal benefit and social marginal benefit, here the social marginal benefit is less than the private marginal benefit because the good is more harmful to the society than the individual realizes while consuming the goods. That's why negative externality in consumption. Please keep in mind that these 2 curves are parallel and there is no shift here, right? Then we have to talk about how this leads to over consumption of the good. The equilibrium that is being produced in the society is Q1 at a price P1, and this is the equilibrium. But what should have happened is Q2 and the price should be reduced to P2. Now this is regarding the knowledge and understanding part, where you are talking about the overconsumption because the consumers underestimating the harmful effects, which is also a part of information failure. Then we will go on to your AO2 component, which talks about the analysis of the 2 policies. Here I have used taxation and regulations, right? Let's go on to the first one. The first one talks about indirect taxation. Now to define indirect taxation, you have to talk about how these are taxes on consumption, or you can say that they are taxes on expenditure. That means on the quantity that is being sold in the market, right? Now if the government is imposing such a tax on demerit goods, it does what? It raises the price. Now how does it raise the price? Because once the government is asking the producer to pay a tax on this good, the tax is causing the cost of production for the firms to go up. Once it causes the cost of production to go up, the supply curve shifts to the left. When we show a leftward shift of the supply curve by the amount of tax per unit, very important here, then what happens is the equilibrium shifts from here to here, and the price that the consumer now has to pay is PC, which is greater than P1. The tax burden for the producer will be this much amount, which is PS P1, right? Now what does this cause? This causes the discouragement of consumption of demerit goods, especially for price sensitive consumers. This is also a part of evaluation that we will talk about later, but for analysis we will say that this discourages the consumption because of the rise in price, and the consumption will fall from Q1 to Q2. Also in the process, the government is generating the revenue which can be used to fund healthcare or campaigns, again discouraging the consumption of the good in the longer term, right? This is the analysis part. The diagram is very, very important. This is a normal demand supply diagram, so quantity and price have been taken on the 2 axes. Then we go on to the second policy, which is the regulation part. Now here you can talk about a ban, advertisement restrictions. Also if you look at the cigarette packs, what happens is it shows some picture about cancer and tobacco causing cancer. All of that is the government mandate. So those are also a part of government regulation. Now, so here what the government is doing is directly restricting consumption through laws, which is the minimum age law, or bans on advertisement, or public smoking bans. It can also be the regulation of advertisement, or mandatorily you have to put an advertisement or picture of how it causes problem to the consumers. Also, if we go to the theaters, we can see that there are ads for tobacco causing cancer and all of that before the movie. So everybody who is going to watch the movie mandatorily has to go through that ad. So that also can be a government regulation. Now, what does that do? It has two purposes. It reduces the access to demerit goods through the laws and bans, and it also causes the problem of information failure to go down by creating more awareness. Also, while age restrictions are limiting the access to young people because they are more vulnerable to misinformation, again solving the problem of information failure. This was the analysis part of our second point. Now we come on to the evaluation, which is the AO3 component, and it is very important because it carries 4 marks in your exam. Now you have to talk about here which policy is more effective, or both the policies' effectiveness separately. Now the effectiveness of indirect taxation depends on price elasticity of demand. Why? Because if we look at this diagram, the burden of taxation will be impacted through it. So if the consumer is inelastic demand, that means the good is addictive, then the consumption may not fall significantly and the effectiveness goes down. Also, indirect taxes are regressive. That means from the higher income earning individuals, the proportion of tax that is charged is lesser, so it disproportionately affects the low income consumers. Also, there is a risk of black marketing, so then the effectiveness of this policy goes down. The next one, which was regulation that we spoke about, it is effective in reducing consumption, particularly in the long run. However, implementation is difficult and costly. We do not exactly know how much of the effectiveness of any campaign is also reaching the consumer, how much awareness it's spreading. So the information failure problem might still exist. Also, it seemed to be paternalistic. Paternalistic means the society knows better. Now, if we talk about this assumption, the society knows better and has the authority to deem a good as demerit, the individual might not agree to it, and so it restricts individual freedom. Now what will happen is, when we are writing the final conclusion, we will write it is more effective often in the long run, and also price mechanism taxation is affecting, which might not lead to the required amount of effectiveness of the policy. Now this was regarding all the components and the entire answer for your 12 marker. See you again. Thank you. Hope it helps you. Bye.